Over to you, Mahant.
All right. We have with us Mr. Anup Pai. Thank you for joining. My name is Mahant. I'm with United States India Monitor. It's a website about US-India relations and US politics and various other things. And I'm excited to be here with Anup. Actually, here meaning I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, and Anup, I'm assuming you're in. Okay. I assumed that's where you were. I wasn't even sure where you were. So undisclosed location in Bangalore, India. So thank you for joining, Anup. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Mahant. Mahant and I, we met long time ago as relatives, but we really, spent a lot of time together in 2015 onwards. When I was selling software in the US, landed up in New York City, didn't know too many people, and I met Mahant at a dinner with him and his sister in Chinatown. And we then ended up hanging out a lot, talking about US politics, which was the hot button item that year. Donald Trump was just about coming up. The candidate Trump was getting hotter and hotter every day. Mahant interested me to learn more, and I took the bait and did a cross country drive through America, New York to San Francisco. Wrote about it on your blog, Mahant, US India Monitor. And I think that change has really changed me. What happened in the US politics in 2015, 2016 really changed my life. I went from being a centralization guy. I was a guy who was helping banks and central banks put all the data together in single and central servers, setting up IT for banks. Over 20 years, I changed direction and started working for the decentralization cause. This is where I'm creating networks of small businesses to come together, create power of union through digital networks. And that's something that we call eSamudaay in India. eSamudaay is a set of digital communities which are governed by people on the blockchain and running digital communities, doing everything from commerce to finance to media in closed community-based methods, peer-to-peer commerce, running in a legal fashion. So we've used India's e-commerce laws to decentralize e-commerce platforms into a network model that has since been also recognized by the government of India as a great opportunity to change the platform way of operating, which is where monolithic black boxes are created by corporations for their benefit and not for our benefit. The network model, which is open networks of people that are collaborating with each other, businesses that are collaborating with each other on a win-win basis, transparent basis, has been adopted by the government of India. And the government of India, over a long tradition of creating great public digital infrastructure, has created a project called ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce, of which eSamudaay is a part as well. We are super excited to be able to take on platforms with open networks. So we're creating open networks of small businesses, large businesses, people, individuals coming together and transacting commerce in an open, transparent way. That's my life's work so far. I love the US, as you know. I keep coming there every year. I mean, we've done July 4th a couple of times together. The fireworks over the East River. And I just love the culture there. It's the pioneering nature of everybody out there. I mean, always challenging the status quo. I mean, everybody I meet in America is constantly looking for ways to change things. I mean, I think that's fantastic. Coming from a country like India where change happens so slowly, we are learning a lot from the US over the last 30 years. I guess we've learned a lot. And so the coming together of US and India is something that is super interesting to me. And Mahant, you're the champion there, setting up great conversations around how US and India can come together, right?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. And you reminded me of something that first time we met and then we went out for dinner, I remember, in Chinatown. of New York, and then we were hanging out till about 4:30 in the morning that night. So
That happens quite a bit when you and I hang out.
that's also true. That wasn't the only time. That was just the first time of many. And that's the first time I'd seen you as an adult as well. So I'm glad we reconnected after actually many years, I feel like, at that point. So I'm glad you brought up also your experience with the United States. And I'm glad to hear that it was largely positive. And I feel like you came to the United States later in your kind of life. You traveled all over the world, right? So how many countries have you been through?
Before I came to the United States in 2015, I had about 40 countries I had visited, mostly. I'd never been to the Americas, neither North nor the South till 2015. I've never been to South America yet. My travels have been mostly in Africa, Middle East. I have spent a lot of time in all the countries in the Gulf region, the Middle East region, not just the Gulf, but also Egypt and the Islamic part of the world.
Mhm.
And as you know, inshallah is part of my vocabulary. I say inshallah quite a bit. So I spent a lot of time in the Islamic regions. I spent some time in Eastern Europe, a lot of time in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, in Philippines, in Indonesia, and obviously Africa quite a bit, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. That was my usual belt. I've been part of going to these let's say traditional cultures, and each one of these places rapidly transforms themselves into the capitalist way of life, the consumer way of life. I mean, so every place I've been to, I've been traveling over the last 25 odd years. I see malls coming up. Every new visit, there are new malls. There are new brands that are being launched. So we're
Mhm.
seeing this commonalities that are coming to various cultures, but each one of them is unique, right? For example, Saudi Arabia. You've lived in Saudi Arabia as a kid.
Yeah.
Over the last 6 years that I was traveling there, the changes that are happening to their culture, it's very common for us to say that it's nothing. Movies being played there for the first time publicly, right?
That's a
Women
big
driving.
deal. That's a big deal. When I
Yeah,
lived there, that was not allowed.
yeah,
You also have wrestling, World Wrestling
yeah.
Mania going on. That
Women
was not
driving.
allowed.
Women
Women
driving.
driving is to
and,
me
and
unfathomable.
And my
Uh,
wife thinks I attach too much, to this next fact. Women are allowed to wear non-black abayas now. I mean, they're allowed to wear
wow.
any color abayas. I mean, she thinks it's I'm being facetious by saying something like this, but it's a big
No,
deal
no.
for Saudi Arabia. It's
That's a big deal. I spent 4 years there as a kid. It was 1987 to 91, to coincide with Desert Storm. I lived there during that. But everything you just mentioned to me is mind blowing when I think of Saudi Arabia. And a lot of times, when we spend time in a place, we're stuck in a time capsule a little bit of,
yeah.
that's the 87 to 91 Saudi Arabia must be what it's still like. But I got a taste of this in the UAE recently. Over the holidays, I was in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and that's like a modern version of the Middle East that I saw there in many ways. As far as the technology stuff I was seeing, the environmental sustainability stuff, the skyscrapers, obviously in Dubai are quite impressive, and Abu Dhabi. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about is I believe, and I think you believe, that the United States and India have a special connection. So you've traveled a lot. I've traveled a lot. I've been to less countries than you, only 25 in my case. However, in my travels, I kind of get a feel for each place like you do, I'm sure. But the United States and India have something special going on, and it's beyond the democracy equation.
Yep.
Obviously, I think that's nice, and that's nice to have, and that's important. But friendly countries don't have to both be democracies necessarily. And I think there's something deeper going on. And if you were to try to put your finger on that, and I'm also curious, I used to live in the UK when I was younger. Does India have this special bond with the UK? I don't see it personally. And obviously there was a colonial bond for many centuries. But what are your thoughts on these questions?
So let me get UK out of the way for the time being. I mean, I think UK doesn't matter in geopolitics anymore, or never did. Maybe they just hold some money from their colonial exploits. They've done nothing of value since in a long time now.
And the
Um,
Kohinoor diamond is still in the
yeah, I
UK.
mean, who cares? I don't care for diamonds anyway. So I mean, they can keep
It's
the
a
trinket.
symbol, though.
They can keep the trinket for all I care. So the UK really doesn't matter. Yes, a lot of Indians love going to London and taking pictures in front of Big Ben and other things.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tourist destination for us. But what really matters is the United States of America, and I'll tell you why. I think Indians are great traders, right? I mean, we've always been that, right?
Mhm.
And right now, the world is run by technologies and thoughts that have emanated out of the United States of America, right? I mean, anything that this computer, for example, that we are talking on, this Zoom, for example, that we are recording on, and so on and so forth. Every single piece of our life has the thought for it, the creation of it, the launch of it, or the whole construction of it has come out of the US, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that we find fascinating, here in India. And we feel, I mean, as we go into the next level of our civilization, which is completely information based, right? A geography and distance and location doesn't matter anymore. It's
Right.
information. So we've now in the truly in the information age, or in the next civilizational level. In that level, I think India and the US are the thought leaders here. And what's the common factor that binds us together? It's freedom of expression, freedom of thought, right?
Yes.
Democracy is just a government system. But over the last 30 years in India, there's been a cultural revolution that's happened that's been very, 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 unseen by a lot of people. And that's driven by US media, that's driven by, the social media, also US, that came from the US, and so on. So I think right now it's fair to say that India and the US are pretty much one country. I mean, when you look at it from a cultural integration perspective, it's complete, right? I mean, you can go and talk about the latest Hollywood movie as well in Hinterland, India. Maybe they'll know, right? I mean, they'll have seen some snippets out of it.
Right.
Everybody knows Facebook, for example, right? I mean, and Facebook is an American company, right? Everybody
Yeah.
knows Amazon. Amazon is an American company, right?
I'll tell you something that's kind of in the opposite direction. Interestingly, so you know the movie RRR, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen it?
No, I have not seen it.
Okay, I actually just saw it a couple days ago, and the reason I saw it was it was on Netflix, and I looked through Rotten Tomatoes, the website that aggregates reviews of movies and ratings. And what I found is a lot of Western media had seen this movie and reviewed it, which
Yeah.
I thought was very interesting. And I could see why. It was actually quite a good movie in many ways.
Yeah.
And entertaining, good acting, good story. Speaking of UK, there's this anti-British sentiment during the British Raj going on. And it is violent. There is some violence in it, just so anyone hearing this would know that before watching. There is a scene, for example, of leopards and tigers eating British soldiers. And you're cheering for it the whole time. It's like, it's hard not to cheer for them at that moment. But the point I'm trying to make is this globalization involves Bollywood as well. You'll see Western studios investing in Bollywood. You're
That's the
seeing Netflix.
opportunity, Mahant. That's the opportunity. It doesn't need to be one-way traffic, right? I mean, the cultural integration, once it has happened, it's happened now.
Shouldn't be, yeah.
It'll be two-way, because India has so many stories to tell. The number of stories that India has to tell, the number of traditional stuck knowledge that is available in India. I know it's like it sounds very Sanghi or Bhakt to say that India has got talent, right? But India does have talent. I mean,
I mean, with a population of 1.3 billion, I hope you would have a lot of talent. Right? And the average age, correct me if I'm wrong, is I believe 28 in India.
it's getting lower and lower. So
Yeah.
it's going to be 25. The median age is going to be 25 by 2026.
That's amazing.
And places like Uttar Pradesh, which is India's most populated state, is the median age is already 20. So
Wow.
it's the north part of India, the kind of energy that exists, and at this point, given that civilizationally also we're making a change from wealth being physically constrained, you could only make wealth out of land or gold or oil or other things till 20 years ago, and now we are making money out of bored apes and cool things like that. The amount
Yeah.
of wealth that can be created out of the energy and imagination of these young people in India, it's mind fucking blowing, right? So it's mind fucking blowing, and the energy they carry is just amazing. And what's happening right now? The US needs a market. The US is also a
Yeah.
great market. I mean, US is the largest market in the world. we are
Yeah.
we are a great market. We're also a great producer of content, right? So and we might not be great at manufacturing yet. China obviously rules the roost in manufacturing, but
Right.
give it 5 more years. I think manufacturing itself is undergoing a change. You don't need sweatshops to manufacture anymore. You got automation, you got robotics, you got IoT. You can do
Right.
small factories in your houses. I mean, I could put up a small manufacturing unit in my balcony, right?
Yeah.
Making anything that is needed. I mean, anything that I could 3D print out of my balcony, right?
You can also
So,
grow marijuana there, right?
uh,
Or no, that's not legal in India, right?
that's not legal. I would like to grow, but you know what? I like to outsource it to California or other places
Good
and
point.
enjoy it when I travel to the US. I don't break the law, right, Mahant? I mean, we are
That's
law-abiding
right.
citizens. That
That's right. I was just joking about that, but there's an opportunity for U.S.-India commerce maybe in that area as well. And then there's 3D printing as well as part of all of this. And is
yeah,
that catching on in India as well?
it's anything that is new in India right now has got takers, right? 3D printing has been, slowly catching on. There's been a lot of early adopters already. You can do simple things so far, but where I'm getting to with this is this fourth industrial revolution that's going on in manufacturing can
Mhm.
really change dynamics and move power from China. China is today manufacturing everything that the world needs, right?
Yeah.
And so, with the Chinese model, while I greatly admire China, I mean, what they've achieved for their people in terms of incomes and so on, I don't think linearly projecting the Chinese model, people are too happy. I mean, you can't be happy living like sheep, right? You can't be happy being herded into your homes and not being let out. You can't
What's
be
going
happy.
on with COVID lockdown is terrible. It
Yeah,
really is terrible. And I'm someone who supports active measures to control COVID. And
yeah,
I wish the US, in fact, had stricter measures in place during this pandemic,
yeah.
but they've gone to the ultimate extreme, way beyond it being helpful in containing the virus, and I'm sure you've seen the images and videos of that.
No, I've not seen the images. I find it, not useful to go and look for that because, I have friends in China, friends who lived in China.
Yeah,
I think that just the thinking that government believes that they know what is best for every single citizen is, I think,
right,
a flawed argument to begin with. I mean,
right,
you can't know. Central planning can't know what's good for everybody because you don't
right.
have all the information. If you don't have all the information, please at least admit you don't have all the information.
At least in a country that big, you have to admit that with so many regions and so many, people, you can't really do one size fits all that easily. And so I understand India doesn't do things that way, right? Um,
No, actually, India loves. I mean, the Indian government agencies love the Chinese model, and you can see that being
I see.
implemented. In several of the government, implementations over the last few years, because it's got efficiencies to be
Yeah,
able to reach the the implementation of the program is far efficient when done top down, right? We all
sure.
know centralization has got benefits of efficiency,
Yeah,
but decentralization or federalization has got the benefit of creating more diversity and better solutions, longer lasting
right,
solutions,
right,
more engagement with the population, more fresher ideas coming together, and so on. So I think I'm a proponent of both existing in harmony, right? I mean, like the yin and the yang,
yeah,
which our cultures are the Chinese culture and the Indian culture. The balance that needs to exist between the feminine and the masculine, that needs to exist in everybody, right? I mean, we need to have a good balance for us to be healthy human beings. Healthy here, healthy here, healthy here, right? All our
right.
chakras.
I hope your chakras are aligned right now, and I hope mine are too. Something interesting that you brought up is the yin and the yang, right, of India and China, which are both obviously ancient cultures, large cultures with 5,000 plus years of history, right,
Yeah,
in each case. And they've largely coexisted. But in today's geopolitical world, if we were to step back and look at the map of the world a little bit, you see the war in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine going on, with the US supporting Ukraine in a sort of proxy war, right? And we find out US is supporting them with cyber operations. US is supporting them with arms, obviously, and I'm sure all kinds of intelligence as well. And I actually um, believe the US um, and NATO should be kind of keeping a close eye on it, but I do hope it doesn't escalate
yeah,
beyond that region. And then you have China supporting Russia. And then I think you will see that as China develops and continues increasing its military presence, which we know is happening, its navy is growing, its military technology is improving, they're using robotics in their and AI in their military and that kind of thing. Do you think India can help the United States balance against China in Asia? Not just militarily, but I'm thinking in terms of ideas, in terms of the essence of democracy itself, although that means many things, you know, and we talked about the federal system. I'm someone who's a big fan of the federal system, especially because I'm in local government and have been my entire adult life. And something great about local government is the ability to experiment on the ground level
yeah,
and replicate what other cities are doing, and other cities can replicate what you're doing. It's something
yeah.
I like about, there's a level of experimentation we can't do at necessarily the federal level. I'm sorry we jumped around a little bit,
So,
but so it's
let me address the geopolitical situation. I think
yeah,
first thing that I advocate is let's drop this us versus them, narrative that plagues us overall, right? I mean, it's not India and the US coming together and versus China or anything. It's none of that. Right now, we are all one human race, right? Searching for answers to keep our planet from exploding, right? I mean, that's or keeping from.
we're all in that together, and climate change as well. We're all in
So,
that together, right?
so I
And
mean, that I think is signs that we have seen again and again, and we are ignoring again and again because
or COVID might have been a sign, right? Like that we're all in this
all
together
of it.
against a
So,
virus. There's
so,
no
but having
borders.
said that, human beings are let's say fighters,
Tribal.
or they are conflict creators. I mean, we can't live without conflict. We love conflict in every part of our lives, right? so I think at this point the biggest fight going on is what Biden put very succinctly in the remarks he made in Ukraine when he went there. It's between autocracy and democracy, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's mostly that argument that government doesn't know what the citizens should not claim to know, that they know everything about what citizens really want. and government is a multi-layered sort of institution. The federal government
Right.
has got its own set of things to deal with. The state governments have got their own set of things to deal with. The local governments have got their own things, and then the sheriff's department and the fire department and all of them have got their own things to deal with, right? And then there's a whole funding
Right.
cycle for it. I think autocracy and even democracies that are run like autocracies, there are a few cases that come to mind.
Mhm.
It's failed to understand that your the a central planning kind of a department or anybody a group of people, however intelligent they are, they could be geniuses, right? They cannot account for all the things that can go on in different parts of the places that they're dealing with. And
Right.
democracy at every level needs to be implemented properly. Today, the systems of democracy are also flawed, as we saw in 2016. The systems of democracy are also kind of controlled by autocratic kind of systems. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
the first step to this is to understand that conflicts are being created for the benefits of keeping the status quo for the people that made their money through colonialism and other means. So, be it the robber barons from the 1800s, and be it the current tech barons that believe they can save the world or whatever. I think I truly believe that there is not one messiah that can save the world. That is not one set of human beings. Even if it is Elon Musk, doesn't know what the fuck is going on. It should be each one of us taking decisions for us. We should be empowered to
It's
do it at our
collective
level, right?
action, right?
And so therefore that I think Putin, while he might have a point of that he might have a point. Putin might have a point, but Putin should not be running Russia, right? It should be a democratic system, in my opinion, right?
Well, he's not doing well for his people, if by most metrics you would,
It's not more for me to say. I mean, I think it should be people of Russia or people of every city needs to elect their leaders. I mean, the leaders need to be
right.
more vested in the development of. I mean, so they need to be listening to the people on every single thing, including if they
Yeah.
want to make a war in Ukraine, they should have gone to a vote first and then gone to war, right?
There's
It
no
should, then the war would
discussion.
not have happened, right?
There was no discussion
Yeah.
whatsoever, it turns
So
out.
India
So
and
we're
the
all in
US.
this. I
I mean,
think you're
in
saying we're
this,
all in
yeah.
this together. And the US India relationship, maybe we don't need to look at it so much strategically, but more as a what collective good can come out of all of us together, right?
I think right now let's look at India and China. I mean, before India and the US, which is an
Yeah.
important relationship, the relationship between India and China is the most important one, right? And it has existed for longer than India-US relationships, and it's existed for eons, right? I
Right.
think India and China are great partners. I mean, we've always exchanged ideas among ourselves. Be it spiritual ideas, be it scientific ideas, be it trade ideas. We've always traded ideas and knowledge among ourselves, right? I mean, and it's been that way since the last century. I mean, till the last century. In the current situation, there is an autocratic setup in the US, in China, that is currently running things, and India is more than capable of working with those kind of regimes as well, because in the
Uh-huh.
end, it's people to people relationships that keep a country going, and
Right.
the current jingoism of banning trade with China is, I think, the wrong move, or curbing trade with China is, I think, the wrong move. It might be a good move in the short term because we want to build our capacities in manufacturing and reduce our
Manufacturing. Right.
dependence. But we should soon be opening our borders for to trade with China. Maybe through Burma and other places. I think the India plays an important part in building trade boundary. I mean, sort of relationships with China. India and the US, on the other hand, is, in my opinion, a natural partnership. It's It's both at a cultural level. I know there's a lot of interest in Indian spirituality and other things that is yoga and other things that is in the US these days.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of interest in Indian content, and if we can really unleash the level of sophistication of Indian content, that exists. I mean, including our old texts and so on. And there's like so much. My mind is blown every time I listen to some of these guys. I mean, the layering of context and layering of storytelling in some of these ancient texts.
Yeah.
I mean, just the avatars and the way the avatars fought and what stories exist. Shiva
Yeah.
himself has got so many stories, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And that content will be interesting to other cultures as well. And will have something to gain. And you don't have to look at it as just religious.
No, it's not religious at all. I think religion is more personal. I think
Yeah.
religion should come out of state. We should not have the link between religion and state anyway.
Yeah.
So I
I
think,
agree.
yeah, but these are all utopian visions. Maybe it'll take 10, 15 years or more for this to bear fruit.
Well, I
Uh,
mentioned RRR before, right? And one other thing I'll say about it is in India, there's all these interesting historic stories, and the stories that you mentioned that are more in the spiritual realm, that can be created into like film content, for example,
yeah,
and even exported to foreign countries, and you can find it on Netflix now. And the US Hollywood model is going entirely, almost entirely towards the Marvel superheroes, right?
yeah,
Where
yeah.
we're recycling the 8th Superman movie now, and the 20th Spider-Man movie, and the 20th Iron Man movie, and Batman movie, right? Like there's all this regurgitation going on in Hollywood, which is partly, it's a sure bet. They know that if they invest in this, they'll make $100 million.
Yeah.
I understand that, but there's a lack of creativity there that
Yeah.
I think there's these other cultures like India's that has all this creativity that's waiting to be harnessed. And we're at the very beginning of that.
Very, very, very beginning. I think people are not seeing the impact of this integration that has already happened. The 30-year integration that has happened, starting from MTV. I mean, as something as simple as MTV that used to play 24/7 in my hostel in a small town in southern Karnataka by the
Engineering
coast,
school, right?
engineering school in Karnataka. MTV
Yeah.
used to play 24/7 in the TV rooms, right? So we grew up listening to rock and watching Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
Hugely impacted by a lot of movies, right? Including,
This was in the 90s, and this was the first time you could see that content in India, right?
so we had the cable TV boom that happened in the late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
With cable TV came MTV, and also a little known thing called fashion TV, which is scantily clad girls walking down ramps 24/7.
Okay.
So, I
Okay.
mean, we used to have fights in our campus on whether FTV will play or MTV will play, and if FTV plays, then the MTV guys walk out, right?
But it sounds like you might have enjoyed both, huh? Both
Yeah,
channels.
FTV gets boring after some time, and so
That's
does
true.
it.
That's true. That's true. But if I remember correctly, MTV also started in supporting the local Indian music scene, right? With
True.
Indian bands and
Yeah,
Indian rock bands
yeah,
started coming out. Indian rappers started coming out.
yeah,
I know a big rapper was just murdered in India,
yeah,
in the Punjab, right?
yeah. I don't know much about that case. I heard he was killed. There's some strife going on in the Punjab, and that's been going on since the late 80s or
Yeah.
80s. Actually, the see the whole oil petrodollar situation that got created in the 70s
Hmm.
created a lot of turmoil in this region, right? I mean, starting from Iran. Iran, the turmoil once it got created in Iran spread to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And then once it spread to Pakistan, it spread to the neighboring parts of India as well, which is Kashmir and
Yeah.
Punjab, right? And Kashmir, we know what went down, or what's still going down.
Still going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Punjab, on the other hand, the Indian state really, used forces to push back because there's not such a large Muslim population in Punjab. It's mostly a Sikh state, as you know,
Right.
and the Sikhs became militant in the 80s, and then since then there's been drugs that are being pushed into the Indian borders through that place. And Punjab is known as the drugs capital of India, with a lot of chemical opioid drugs that are being peddled in there. It's a
Right.
sad state, and I think with the use of drugs on our youth, I think it's totally below the belt. It doesn't need to happen.
That's too bad. And you
And
think
that
that's
same thing
tied
is
in?
happening in the US. We need to call, the pharma industry. We need to call BS on them. They can't
Yes.
be pushing this into. I mean, it has to be.
Fentanyl and
Yeah.
OxyContin and all of these so-called legal drugs that are killing people left and right. Yeah. And that's an epidemic going on in the US, along with gun violence. We have an epidemic of that as well here.
I think
That's
these are
playing out.
all institutions that need to be torn down, Mahant. I think the pharma industry is evil, the gun
Yeah,
industry is evil,
no question.
and those are things that need to be regulated as much as banking is regulated, and we need to be on their ass. They are not lifesavers, and they can't be getting away calling themselves lifesavers or protectors or whatever. They are
No.
killers, right? I mean, and they need to be called as such. And so.
And how, okay, so do you think more regulation is the answer with these two industries, for example?
I think breaking down these behemoths, and making their so there is so they can say feign ignorance on what's happening. I'm just the manufacturer. I'm just the holder of the IP on this particular compound, right?
Mhm.
But once you know that it's being misused, right, or it's being given out and people are getting hooked on it and so on,
Yeah.
you can't be saying I'm not responsible for it, right? I think there needs to be some level of, I mean, regulation will not work on them because they've got every single government politician
In their
in their
pockets.
lobbyist pockets.
Yeah.
I think it is public opinion that has to drive it, Mahant. I think it has to be us. So, for example, I've never taken a pharmaceutical product in my life, right? So
Really?
I think it is a good way of life. We don't need pharmaceutical products. There's enough herbs and food, right, that
Mm.
can keep us healthy. Yes, if
Mhm.
I get cancer, I might have to take some pharmaceutical products. I don't know.
Right.
But for a regular cold or a regular, antibiotics and so on are not necessary. I think,
Did you take the COVID vaccine though?
yeah, because I had to come and see you in the US, and the US says anybody who doesn't get a vaccine is not welcome here. And I said, fuck
I
it,
know.
I want to, I mean, I want to go to the US, so
Well,
I may have to get that shit.
I'm glad you made that effort outside of your principles, at least for that exception to come to the US. I'm glad you did that.
And my daughter has been taking all her vaccines, so.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, at some level, see, I mean, progress has been made, and there is a point in our human history where we live where there's a way of life. I don't want it. So the past can't just keep repeating. We need to call a change somewhere, right? I mean, we can't just keep saying progress is in this direction. Progress could be in some other direction. Progress
Right.
could be us taking a step back, looking inward, understanding ourselves. What are we here on this planet to do? Right? I mean, didn't everybody ask this question when we sat at home during lockdown? I mean, what am I doing here? Right?
Right.
I mean, when we got shook out of our slumber, and we said, you know, I think we need to ask that question of ourselves. We need to now do this journey inwards, because I
Hmm.
think that's the answer to everything is here, right? It's here, right?
Yeah.
And with theoretical physics heading in the same direction, I think just by that exploration, we'll be able to do intergalactic travel without physically leaving this planet. We can have powerful avatars of ours, in different galaxies, and we could, you and I could be having a conversation, having a beer, and our avatars could be traveling in, Alpha Centauri, right?
That sounds awesome, man. So it's not that far-fetched. If you think about this Zoom call we're doing, we couldn't have imagined this except in Star Trek, right?
Exactly.
Back as recently as the 70s or 80s, this was science fiction, right? And now we're doing it. Obviously, you're in India, I'm in the US. This is very easy to do. Hopefully someone's listening to us right now that's somewhere else, right? If anyone listens to this, this first of our attempts at doing an interview. Maybe it's not that far-fetched that we're out in the universe riding motorcycles, right? In intergalactic motorcycles while having a beer, not at the same time, but in a different avatar, right?
Time itself, maybe we should keep the concept of time for another episode. I think
Yes.
time itself is a multi-layered thing. We could, you and I, could be living in another, parallel dimension as well, which is in another time.
Or this could all be a simulation, man. I've been convinced of this quite a lot lately with what I'm seeing sometimes.
It does seem that way. And even physics is pointing to that being that way. So if it is a simulation, Mahant, it's already past 10 here. I need to get my day started. So,
Sure.
So if this is a simulation, I have one fervent. So that means we can change the future, right? We can imagine, we can play the game better to create a better future, right?
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, in which case, I think it has to be that we have to stop burning as much carbon, right, as a species.
No question. Yeah.
There is no question about it.
I mean, that's gonna wipe us out if we don't solve that problem.
We have to do that. We have to plant more trees. We have to get more greener. We have to eat better. We have to exercise more, fuck more.
All the good stuff. Yeah. I'm with you on everything you've said, and I hope we can keep talking. I know you have to get going. I have to get to bed soon as well. I hope we keep talking. Thank you again, Anup Pai, the CEO of eSamudaay. You can check them out at eSamudaay.com. Did I get that right? All right, nailed it. You can check out this site at usindiamonitor.com. It's usindiamonitor.com. I hope you all out there enjoyed this, and I hope you tune in again.
And I just noticed that my name is Ravinder Mohori on Zoom because I'm using Ravinder's.
This is what you already created, a new avatar in the last 5 seconds. That's impressive, man. I was talking about a distant future. You've already done it. It's awesome.
Bye, man. Good night, man.
Talk soon. Keep your chakras going. All right.
Yeah, I will. You too.
Take care. I will.
Yes, man.
Take
Bye.
care.